Thank you so much for that introduction, Rose, and thank you all for being here today. You know, a year ago when we held this event, we weren't even in the same room. And I have to note, today we are together in what is the single largest dollar item in the Vision Tulsa program, which is the largest economic development capital program in the history of the city of Tulsa. This facility, even in the midst of the pandemic, we continued moving forward with the construction of this, knowing that there would be a time when Tulsans were able to come back together and celebrate successes in our city. And today is one of those. And I hope you enjoy the fruits of the citizens of Tulsa's belief in our city here in this room today. Thank you. But a year ago, I was speaking into a camera, and you were hopefully watching on your computer or at home or at the office. A global pandemic had physically separated us, and none of us had yet been vaccinated. Today, we are back together. Vaccines are free and readily available for all who are old enough to receive them, and exciting initiatives are underway across the city. I want to thank my family for their love, support, and patience, especially my wife, Susan, and our kids, Robert and Annabelle. I'm grateful every day for the lifelong example of my granddad, the best mayor that Tulsa ever had, and I'm looking forward to celebrating his 95th birthday in January. But I also remember a relationship that failed in the last 2 years. Someone I spent time with every day, usually from the moment I woke up in the morning until I went to bed at night. I went to them for guidance. I worked with them to help answer questions. I'm speaking, of course, about my Facebook comment section. For years, media professionals and other elected officials could not believe how much time I spent there, not turning it over to a staffer, but handling it all on my own. I thought it was a great resource, like a front porch that anyone was welcome to step onto and ask me a question or tell me what I was doing wrong. But at some point in 2020, I just finally threw in the towel. The comment section, as we now know, thanks to investigative journalism, has basically become a funnel of smugness, misinformation, and rage. And I could spend all day there trying to fix things, or I could do my job that actually impacts people's lives. I do miss the folks with sincere questions or ideas, and if you're one of them, you can shoot me an email anytime at mayor@cityoftulsa.org. Now, I get to share a lot of exciting progress with you today, but I want to be clear at the outset that this only happens because of teams of Tulsans who are working to move our community forward. As mayor, I get to be a part of many of these teams, so I know the great work they're doing and can share it with you. But there hasn't been any significant accomplishment for our city that it did not involve a lot of people. Given this venue, though, I do want to single out one team in particular, and that's Mike Neal and the team at the Tulsa Regional Chamber. Everybody knows how energetic Mike is. Rose actually had to start the venue to get Mike out from working the crowd. And you see him at a lot of big announcements and the openings of new facilities, but what you don't see are the months and usually years of work that he and his team put into those projects behind the scenes before that photo opportunity ever becomes available. I'm so grateful to have the best chamber in America in the city that I serve. Their work makes a lot of us look pretty smart, and I want to thank all of you who support their work. The more that each organization represented here today can do to support the Tulsa Regional Chamber, the more they can do to grow our regional economy. So to Mike and his team, thank you. I remember being in our Emergency Operations Center during the 2019 flood. Any leader in Tulsa knows you're going to have to deal with natural disasters, the most common probably being tornadoes. But tornadoes trick you. They get you accustomed to dealing with natural disasters that happen very quickly, and your job is mostly to deal with the aftermath. But the flood event in Tulsa went on for weeks, and I remember the exhaustion at the end of that event when Keystone Dam finally started lowering its releases to a manageable level. Our whole community had been on alert for a few weeks, and at the city, we worked around the clock to manage the response. And at one point, we were actually delivering a briefing in the middle of the flood while tornadoes were hitting town. What we did not appreciate at the time was that the 2019 flood was just the start. I think it's important to take a moment to reflect on what Tulsans have endured over the last 2 years. We dealt with a flood that was our worst since the famous Memorial Day flood in 1984. We dealt with the worst global pandemics since the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918. We dealt with the largest spike in unemployment since the Great Depression. We dealt with the largest municipal budget reduction since the Great Recession. We experienced civil unrest, the likes of which we have not seen since the 1960s. We endured a polar vortex, which caused the worst winter storm destruction since the 2007 ice storm. Our two largest economic sectors faced historic challenges, with oil prices dropping to trade at negative $38 a barrel and enplaned commercial aviation passengers dropping more than 90% year over year. We overcame the worst cyber attack on a governmental entity in Oklahoma history. We mourned the first Tulsa police officer murdered since 1996. We have experienced a century's share of calamity in just 2 years. And I remember about a month into our pandemic response, and I was sitting at our kitchen table at home, what had become the mayor's office for a while, and I just concluded a Zoom call dealing with the crisis of the day, and Susan walks up behind me and she puts her hands on my shoulders and she starts laughing. And I ask her, like, what's so funny? I'm dealing with the end of days here. And she said, you've wanted to be mayor of Tulsa since you were 8 years old, and of all the times in the entire history of the city that you could have done it, this is when you get to do your dream job. I was reminded of that with each successive crisis that arose, and yet that is what makes me so proud of Tulsa. Because in spite of crisis after crisis, Tulsa is experiencing the greatest moment of growth and transformation in my lifetime. We have not been distracted or discouraged. The cranes are in the air. Businesses are growing faster than they can find employees. Exciting new attractions are opening, and Tulsa's historic period of growth continues to roll forward. There has never been, at least in my lifetime, a more exciting time to serve our city. And I'm so thankful to go to work every day with the best public servants in America at the city of Tulsa. These are the rookie police officers who signed up to protect you when law enforcement has never been under greater scrutiny. The firefighters who responded to your medical emergency in a pandemic before we even knew how COVID-19 spread or how to properly protect them from it. These are the crews that were out digging through ice to fix your water line when it was negative 20 degrees. These are the civil servants working to translate our COVID briefings into multiple languages, balance our budget, repair our IT infrastructure, and vaccinate our other employees. Also, the larger team can continue to serve you. These are the city councilors who put service ahead of partisanship, and the auditor who modernizes our performance management systems. 3,500 people like that come to work every day, and they do their jobs to make this the best city it can be for you and your family. They reflect the resilience of the citizens that they serve. In its 123 years of 24/7 operations, the city of Tulsa has never been tested like it has been in the last 2 years. But through all of that, we never lost sight of our primary overarching mission to make Tulsa a globally competitive world-class city. That's a pretty broad goal. So we seek to achieve it through 3 primary areas: making Tulsa a safe city, making Tulsa a city of opportunity and empowering this generation of Tulsans to build the city they want to leave to the next generation. When it comes to public safety, the greatest challenge we face in Tulsa is a workforce shortage. In the Tulsa Fire Department, we've seen the inevitable demographic results of an older generation of firefighters retiring at a rapid pace. To address this, the city of Tulsa successfully secured a $12 million federal grant that will allow us to hire 60 new firefighters this year. In fact, I just talked to Chief Baker. Tomorrow, they are going out. The last step in their hiring process is that they have to climb a ladder 70 feet into the air, and as he explained it to me, do the whole Titanic thing, which I guess is like leaning off the top of it, and then go back down. Unless you do that, you don't get in the academy. But we're going to close that gap and start the careers of a whole new generation of Tulsa firefighters. But despite this temporarily reduced workforce, the Tulsa Fire Department has secured an ISO rating of 1, independently ranking us as one of the best cities in America for fire protection, which benefits property insurance rates throughout our community. But Chief Michael Baker and his team aren't sitting around patting themselves on the back. Under construction right now is Tulsa's newest fire station, Station 33 in East Tulsa, which will ensure that the fastest growing part of our city continues to enjoy the highest quality of fire protection service. In the Tulsa Police Department, we are seeing two workforce trends converge: retirements amongst the more senior members of the force, and challenges in recruitment due to the toxic national dialogue that is aimed at law enforcement. This is why I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude every time I see a new academy graduate from the Tulsa Police Department. These are men and women who knowingly enter a dangerous job that has never been more scrutinized, yet they do it because they want to protect you and me. They are remarkable people from remarkable families. But Tulsa has not been as competitive as we need to be in hiring them. Independent experts have told us that we need around 950 officers. The day I was sworn in as mayor, we had around 730. During my time, the city council and I have funded the most rapid increase in hiring in Tulsa Police Department history, so that even with all the retirements that we've seen in the last year, we are still at around 830 officers today. But the pool of candidates with each of those classes has shrunk steadily, to the point that TPD hasn't been able to fill recent academy classes. So this year we agreed to the largest increase in starting pay in the history of the Tulsa Police Department, ranking Tulsa alongside Oklahoma City in pay that we can offer new officers. This resulted in an immediate increase in applicants, and last month we accepted 35 officers into our newest academy, making it one of the largest classes that we've ever had. In spite of these manpower shortages, the Tulsa Police Department continues to do remarkable work. Under Chief Franklin, they have expanded their community policing efforts with a community engagement unit and community advisory boards in each of the 3 divisions. And one of the most important jobs for the Tulsa Police Department, apprehending murderers, our department ranks amongst the best in the whole nation. TPD's homicide solve rate last year was 94%. To put that in context, during the same time, Chicago's was 46% and Houston's was 45%. They are doing a phenomenal job. The Tulsa Fire Department and the Tulsa Police Department are also working together to expand an important innovative service throughout Tulsa. In my first year as mayor, thanks to a grant from the Tulsa Area United Way, we became one of the first cities in the nation to test pilot a community response team. Each mobile response team consists of a police officer, a firefighter, and a mental health counselor from Family and Children's Services. And these teams assist people experiencing a mental health crisis, assisting them quickly in the field and connecting them with the resources they need for a healthy recovery. In the last 4 years, the City Council and I have grown this program from its initial pilot stage to this year expanding it to 5 days a week, which is the amount recommended by program organizers as being the most effective. We've also embedded a counselor from Family and Children's Services COPES program in our 911 center so people experiencing a mental health crisis can access immediate expert assistance on the phone before a community response team arrives. Of course, you can't talk about public safety during a pandemic without profound gratitude for the team at the Tulsa Health Department and the healthcare professionals working throughout our community to save lives. We are living through the greatest public health emergency in our city's history, and these selfless heroes have guided our response every step of the way. They have deployed a vaccine to all who want it, and they have cared for those most severely impacted and affected by COVID-19. And all of this has come at a great personal toll for them that can never be properly compensated. But we can show our thanks by doing our part to prevent the worst effects of the virus through vaccination. Now, if you work in Tulsa's healthcare industry, and feel free to interpret that as loosely as you want, but if you've been working in healthcare in Tulsa over the last 2 years, would you please stand up so the rest of the people in this room can show you our thanks? Thank you so much. In particular, I want to single out the director of the Tulsa Health Department, Dr. Bruce Dart. The city has been so fortunate to have a local independent guide during this pandemic that has been free of political influence. The Tulsa Health Department has its own board, its own revenue source, and that has freed Dr. Dart to focus solely on what will keep our community safe. And he has used a lifetime of experience and education to devote seemingly all his waking hours for the last 21 months to advising our community on what we can do to protect ourselves and our family. And in exchange for this selfless service, he's been ridiculed by self-appointed experts with no public health education, had his life threatened, and had dead animals dumped in his yard by cowards. Yet none of that distracted him. He continues to work every day, seeking the latest data and research, answering every call, participating in every meeting. Bruce Dart is the savior of an incalculable number of lives because of his tireless work, and I hope that one day our community can properly thank him. Dr. Dart, thank you. And he wasn't even going to be here today. He was too busy working. I was like, no, Dr. Dart, you're a big part of this speech. You really need to be there. And I'm appreciative he would not come to this unless he could bring his team from the health department with him. That's the kind of leader that he is. While we're talking about public safety, there's been a lot of discussion lately about last year's 5-4 Supreme Court decision in the McGirt case. And given the magnitude of that decision and the impact it has on the everyday lives of so many people, it should be no surprise that tempers have flared. We have officials in both the state government and tribal governments who feel a deep responsibility to the people they serve, and they've been asked to sort through a fundamental question of how those governments interact, a question that will impact the lives of Oklahomans for centuries into the future. In Tulsa, we work with all of them. Our city does not have the luxury of attacking one side or the other because they are all our long-term partners. They are my friends. I have great respect for our governor, our attorney general, and the chiefs who lead the Cherokee, Muskogee, and Osage nations. They have all been incredibly important partners and collaborators with our city, and they will continue to be in the future. Leaders can have principled disagreements and still work together for the common good, and I hope that that will continue to be the case here. The second component to our strategy for Tulsa to compete as a world-class city is that we must be recognized as a city of opportunity for everyone. Now more so than at any time in human history, people have mobility to move where opportunity awaits. And for most of us in this room, we are in Tulsa because we can see opportunity for ourselves and our families in this community. But that isn't the case for everyone. We seek to change that. At the City of Tulsa, we established our community's first comprehensive strategy to address racial disparities, the Resilient Tulsa Strategy. But I've been at City Hall long enough to know we are fantastic at developing plans and then putting them on a shelf. So we created a team, the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Equity, tasked with coming to work every day to implement that plan. And to track our progress, we are one of the only major cities in America to self-fund an annual independent audit of inequality in our city, the Tulsa Equality Indicators. Although it seems like a lifetime ago, I first ran for mayor in 2016 for two main reasons. I thought we were underachieving as a city, and I was horrified by the life expectancy disparity between North Tulsa and the rest of the city. The initiatives I just mentioned were designed to address that disparity. If I'm being honest, I'll admit that one of my greatest frustrations in this job has been the slow pace of improvement in that disparity. But as a North Tulsa pastor once told me, you can't expect these problems to build up for a century and then you come in as mayor and just flip a switch and they go away. The reality is that this work must be sustained and committed for years if we're going to realize a Tulsa where every kid has an equal opportunity for success. So we have to build systems now that will carry out that work over the years ahead. And this leads me to one of the most important economic development initiatives in our city's history, the creation of the Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity. For decades, it's been acknowledged that the city's economic development tools were siloed and inefficient. We had the Mayor's Office of Economic Development to help manage projects, the Tulsa Industrial Authority to assist with financing, the Tulsa Parking Authority to manage parking facilities, the Tulsa Development Authority to incentivize construction in underserved areas, and an Economic Development Commission made up of great business leaders that was powerless to follow through on most of their guidance. Each of these entities had their own boards of directors and own staff. Communication between them was sporadic and unreliable, and they almost never worked together on projects. For someone looking to invest in Tulsa, they needed practically a Sherpa to walk them through all of these different entities if they wanted to maximize support for their project. Well, not anymore. This year, we merged all of those entities into one new authority, the Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity. The Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity will dramatically enhance ease of investment for those who want to help grow our city. It will be more efficient and more effective and will unleash the substantial resources the city has to offer the private sector. But what makes the Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity unique is its purpose. It seeks to use economic development to advance equality of opportunity in all parts of our city. Even though, in partnership with the Tulsa Regional Chamber, we've enjoyed historic achievements in economic development over the last 5 years. As Rose mentioned, landing the two largest new employers in Tulsa history, the single largest economic development investment in Tulsa history, and over $1 billion in private sector investment into North Tulsa. We aren't doing these for the sake of economic development alone. We are using these achievements to make Tulsa a city where equality of opportunity is not just an aspiration, but a reality. Having a local economic development authority with this kind of mission is unique in America, and as a result, the Tulsa Authority for Economic Opportunity has already garnered national interest and been held up as a model for others. I'm incredibly grateful for the work of Kyan Camus and her team, as well as board members of the new organization and its predecessors, all of whom have been working tirelessly to bring about what I expect will be, in retrospect, a few decades from now, viewed as one of the most transformative enterprises in Tulsa's history. While the eyes of the world have been on Tulsa during the centennial of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, we began that work as a city long before the attention shifted to us, and we will continue it long after that attention has moved on. We are committed to the work of shedding light on our painful past and promoting reconciliation and healing for the long term, including the search for the graves of the victims from the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. After extensive historical research and scanning, we conducted an excavation this past summer in Oak Lawn Cemetery in search of evidence of a mass grave. Our technical experts will report their findings and recommend next steps in the months ahead. This project will take years to do the right way, but we are committed to following the truth where it leads us. I'm incredibly grateful for the citizen volunteers and technical experts from around America who have assisted this project as we seek the truth for our neighbors who were murdered in 1921. And when we talk about people who view Tulsa as a place of opportunity, I get to meet a new group of them every single month since we started hosting citizenship ceremonies at City Hall. This is part of what we call the New Tulsans Initiative, a program to make sure Tulsa is living up to the faith that our immigrant community has placed in this city. We realized that there were thousands of Tulsans going through the citizenship process, and we wanted them to know how grateful our community is that they chose Tulsa. So we started hosting these ceremonies, and every month I attend them and I meet people who have risked all they have to leave their homeland and come here because they view Tulsa and Oklahoma and the United States as beacons of freedom and opportunity, not just for them, but for future generations of their family. It just fills you with so much pride in our country, our state, and our city. And during the first wave of the pandemic, we couldn't hold one inside City Hall, so we held our largest one yet at the Admiral Twin Drive-In. It was awesome. This year, we also launched another important initiative to make Tulsa a city of opportunity for everyone. And this is one where I'm going to ask the help of every organization in this room today. Tulsa cannot rightly call itself a city of opportunity for everyone so long as women earn 84 cents to every dollar earned by men for comparable work. To address this, the Mayor's Commission on the Status of Women created the Mayor's Pay Equity Pledge to highlight Tulsa employers who are committed to closing this gap. Companies and organizations that take the Mayor's Pay Equity Pledge agree to three things. First, they will ban questions about previous salary history to candidates for hire or promotion. Studies have shown that women are routinely disadvantaged by this practice. Two, they commit to diversity, equity, and inclusion training for personnel responsible for recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and promoting. And third, they review employee pay to ensure compliance with the Equal Pay Act. That one is particularly important as we are asking employers to do what you're already supposed to be doing under federal law. At the City of Tulsa, we can speak to the value of this program from our own experience. We're a large public organization with employees operating within a civil service system and strict labor contracts. This is not a venue ripe for intentional discrimination. But when we conducted a self-audit, we found around $400,000 in pay disparities within our own organization, disparities which arose bit by bit here and there over years, completely unintentionally, but with real consequences for women working at the city. Thanks to a swift budget amendment from the City Council, we were able to correct this and make sure our employees are receiving equal pay for equal work, and now we go through a self-audit annually to prevent any recurrence. I am so thankful. Thank you. I am so thankful for these nearly 40 Tulsa organizations who have already taken this pledge in its first year. You've registered yourselves as employers of choice in Tulsa at a time when the competition for employees is intense. And I encourage every organization represented here today to take this pledge. All you have to do is email resilient@cityoftulsa.org, and our team will follow up with everything you need to take the pledge. The third component of making Tulsa a world-class city is that we are building the city we want to leave to future generations. Right now, Tulsa is going through the third wave of growth in the history of our city. Every time I walk into my office, the view out the window is dominated by two cranes as part of the Santa Fe Square construction project. For someone who's done as much for Tulsa as Elliot Nelson has, it's exciting to see his longtime dream coming to life in this expansive mixed-use development in the Blue Dome District. After sitting underutilized for years, projects like the historic renovation of the Sinclair building are moving forward thanks to the support of programs like our Downtown Development and Redevelopment Fund In total, between recently completed, in progress, and planned projects, that program alone is supporting $161 million in new investment downtown. American Airlines is moving forward with a modernization of their Tulsa base, the largest commercial aviation maintenance base in the whole world, with a $550 million investment that will secure Tulsa as the center of excellence for decades to come. Navistar, which operates one of the largest school bus manufacturing facilities in the whole world, right here in Tulsa, is investing millions into their Tulsa plant following a renewed agreement with the city of Tulsa, providing safe rides to school for kids across America and employing over 1,000 of our neighbors in the Tulsa metro. 4 years ago, Amazon had no physical footprint in Tulsa. As of today, they have completed their third facility in our city in 3 years, speeding delivery to customers and employing even more people. In North Tulsa, we broke ground on a transformative new mixed-use development along 36th Street North led by Tulsa developer Antoine Harris. This new project will include a hotel and retail and has some of the most breathtaking views of the Tulsa skyline that you'll see anywhere. For years, North Tulsa residents have been underserved when it comes to grocery store access. This year alone, we have opened the Oasis Fresh Market on North Peoria, and we just announced Tulsa's second Costco is on its way to the rapidly developing 169 corridor in Northeast Tulsa. And speaking of grocery stores, downtown will be getting another as well on the ground floor of the exciting new mixed-use development set to begin construction next year on what was, in the past, the Tulsa Performing Arts Center parking lot. This development will include apartments, retail, and ample parking for both residents and PAC patrons alike. Serving as a connecting point between the Greenwood and Arts districts, Devon Energy is nearing completion of a landmark $100 million tower and is actively leasing what is undoubtedly some of the most beautiful office space in Tulsa. And as we work to add the critical services necessary for vibrant neighborhoods, we're also pushing to ensure we maintain and increase the availability of quality, affordable housing. Through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, in the last 10 months alone, we will have partnered with developers and agencies to create 80 new affordable housing units, support another 80 families in North Tulsa to become home buyers, and help at least 450 individuals and families maintain or gain access to affordable housing through innovative new landlord and rental assistance programs. We've also announced significant investments in Tulsa's entrepreneurial ecosystem. 36 Degrees North opened one of the largest tech-focused incubators in the whole country on the 5th floor of City Hall, serving high-growth, tech-enabled startups with access to in-house programming, venture capital partners, one-on-one mentorship, and tax benefits upon completion of their year-long program. The startups in this 40,000 square foot space are going to change the future of Tulsa, and they are truly bringing a new kind of energy to City Hall. As a sign of the demand for this type of space, the occupancy in this incubator is currently already at 76%, while nationally, incubators of this type average around 30% occupancy in their first year. We also announced the creation of the Greenwood Entrepreneurship Incubator at Moton, housed in the historic former Moton Hospital at Pine and Greenwood. The city of Tulsa has seeded funding for the physical transformation of the building and a 15-week TEDC accelerator course in which entrepreneur cohorts will develop their ideas into new Tulsa businesses. And when it comes to public infrastructure, we have some of the most transformative projects in Tulsa history underway right now. USA BMX's world headquarters and the Hardesty National BMX Stadium are set to open early next year, attracting hundreds of thousands to the Greenwood District and making Tulsa the home of an Olympic sport. Just a few short weeks ago, we broke ground on the $200 million Veterans Hospital in Tulsa, a transformative public-private partnership between the Veterans Administration, OSU Medical Center, the City of Tulsa, Tulsa County, the State of Oklahoma, and Tulsa's philanthropic community to build out a campus that will increase access to quality care for the thousands of veterans in Northeast Oklahoma and establish what will truly be a world-class medical district in downtown Tulsa. After nearly 70 years of incremental work, the Gilchrist Expressway loop will be completed next year, thanks to a groundbreaking public-private partnership opening up areas of our city for development that were previously not easily accessible for significant traffic. We're building a lake in the Arkansas River that will transform the way Tulsans use our greatest natural asset for recreation. Instead of everyone getting super excited for the one day a year we can use the river for the raft race, we will have a lake adjacent to the greatest city park in America, the Gathering Place, that people can access and enjoy throughout the year. Both the dam that creates the lake and the new pedestrian bridge, the first of its kind in the United States that will be more than twice the width of the previous bridge and will arc out over the lake for stunning views of the natural surroundings. These are both on pace for completion in 2023. And I want to congratulate every Tulsan in this room, because you may not know it or not, but you own the greatest collection of American art and history outside of that owned by the federal government. The Thomas Gilchrist Museum is home to Native American art and artifacts, Benjamin Franklin's copy of the Declaration of Independence, and even Bob Dylan's archive. And for years, this world-class collection has been housed in an antiquated, inefficient, leaky old building. Well, not anymore. This generation of Tulsans is going to build a new museum worthy of that great collection, and it is set for completion in 2024. At the City of Tulsa, one of the ways we are facilitating all of this growth is through continuous improvement in the way we process the permits necessary for projects to move forward. As many of you will recall, when I started as mayor, we didn't even know how long it took the city to process a permit for the first time. Nobody was tracking it. So we installed a tracking system and found that it took an average of 5 weeks just to review the first round of a permit application. Thanks to the support of our development community and the City Council, we brought fees in line with the cost of delivering high-quality service. And in 1 year, we moved that average review time from 5 weeks down to 5 days. But our team hasn't been satisfied with that and has continued to implement improvements that have resulted in Tulsa being ranked this year as the 9th best city in America and the best in the state of Oklahoma for ease of doing business by the Center for the Study of Economic Liberty. I am grateful for the hard work of our development services team to achieve this turnaround, and I know that they won't be satisfied. I also want to thank our Tulsa City Council. Many of the major cities around America are now using funds from the American Rescue Plan Act to cover budget deficits that they racked up in the outset of the pandemic. In Tulsa, our administration worked with the City Council to make significant budget reductions on the front end of the pandemic, freezing hiring, furloughing employees, and altogether reducing spending to prepare for a worst-case scenario. And because we kept our budget balanced in Tulsa, we don't need a federal rescue and can instead focus that federal funding on needed improvements like the replacement of broken down fire trucks, body cameras for police officers, improvements to the operations of our municipal court, and hopefully a partnership with other governments to fund the replacement of the air traffic control tower at Tulsa International Airport. And on that one in particular, I want to thank our colleagues at Tulsa County for standing with us on this one. I get asked all the time, why does Tulsa have so much momentum right now? And I can tell you what I hear from one business leader after another who's comparing us with other prospective places that they're thinking about investment. They tell me it seems like Tulsa is one city where everybody's rowing in the same direction, that we're working together to move our city forward rather than getting distracted by infighting, and they want to invest in a place focused on progress. This is not for lack of opportunities to backslide. Every single day, each of us faces social media algorithms designed to promote outrage rather than understanding. People and even bots who seek power by pitting us against one another. An outrage industrial complex that raises money and creates jobs for the parasites who live off it by demonizing them, whoever that might conveniently be. Not a month goes by that someone or some group doesn't tell me, if you believe or do this, then we won't work with you. I contrast that approach with what I learned from my old boss, Senator Don Nichols, who served the state of Oklahoma for 24 years. Senator Nichols once told me why he never personally attacked other senators in debates. He said, I disagree with them today on this issue, but I need to work with them on a different issue tomorrow. And if I attack their character, if I question their motives, I will only hurt my own ability to be effective and get things done for the people who sent me here. He was so right. I'm so thankful I got that advice from him at a young age. Every day, each of us gets to decide if we're going to join in those fights or if we're going to keep finding ways to overcome the base level instincts of fear, outrage, and retribution to instead find ways to work together and move Tulsa forward. Thankfully, person by person, our city generally chooses the high road. And this has created tremendous positive momentum that will benefit every person in our region for decades to come. What we're really trying to do in Tulsa is build a citadel against the toxic sources of division that have contaminated public life at so many other levels throughout our country. The story of our city is that we can do more to overcome both natural and man-made disasters, to make our city safer, to create opportunity for all, to build the city we truly want Tulsa to be when we are working together. This does not mean that we will always agree or that we have to. What it means is that in Tulsa, facts from all sides are welcome, and democracy, not outrage or volume, provides us a path forward. So I want to thank everyone who applauded to that. I want to thank everyone in this community and in this room who is doing your part to build that kind of Tulsa. Because of you, the state of our city is strong. Thank you so much.